But we will continue that conversation. I believe our colleague Sakina, as well as politics editor Mzwandile Mbeje, are standing by for us with the very latest, just to give us a summation of what has taken place thus far. It's over to you, Sakina.
Well, thank you so much, and welcome back. Welcome back to the Cape Town International Convention Centre, and of course declared a precinct of Parliament. And I'm with Mzwandile Mbeje. We've been sitting here all day. So what we've seen so far, Mzwandile, of course, is the Chief Justice presiding over the election of the Speaker of the National Assembly, and two people contesting there, and Togo Didiza emerging victorious of the ANC, and she is now presiding over the election of the Deputy Speaker, and we've got two people nominated for that.
Oh yes, and it seems like it's going to go like this until we finish, I guess, either late today or even in the early hours of the morning. If you see how long this process takes, the Speaker, it happened in the early hours, rather late morning, but it had to be concluded in the afternoon. So I'm just suspecting that we may have to be here for quite some time. So we already know that the DA has fielded a candidate,
Dr. Annelie
Lotriet, and the ATM, Vuyo Zungula, being nominated by the Economic Freedom Fighters, basically underscoring that progressive caucus that they formed to say they will act together, they will advance those interests together as parties. So clearly, Sakina, I suspect later on when we go to the big one, the election of the president, so we already know that the ANC will field President Ramaphosa, and the DA has basically said they will support them. So the progressive caucus is certainly likely to field their own. So they are keeping everything close to their chest. We don't know who it will be. But I met Julius Malema outside. We bumped into each other. He basically said to me, have lots and lots of coffee because we're still going to be here for quite some time. I don't know whether it's going to be him or someone else.
So very interestingly, that framework agreement for the Government of National Unity, it has, of course, now been signed, we understand. But what it states, and I just want to pick up something here. It says the Government of National Unity shall take decisions in accordance with the established practice of consensus. Where no consensus is possible, the principle of sufficient consensus shall apply. And then it goes on to describe what sufficient consensus would be. So sufficient consensus exists when all parties have had the opportunity to express their views. Then secondly, despite reasonable attempts to resolve disagreements and find common ground, there is no general consensus, and parties to the GNU representing 60% of seats in the National Assembly agree, and any party that disagrees has been able to formally record their objections. So this is going to be very interesting, because what does that mean in terms of trying to pass any sort of policy at this point? Or is it like it was during CODESA, where sufficient consensus meant when Rolf and Cyril agreed that was sufficient consensus?
And the challenges were quite different then, and given what we are facing now. Right now, it's so much more about governance, about service delivery, about certain decisions, really, about our country. So then there was also that element of euphoria. So it could be much easier to then look towards sufficient consensus, because you would easily say, you know what, guys, we are trying to build something together here. So we're still trying to understand each other. Let's agree on this one. So now these are people who know each other very well. So yes, they've said the interests of the country will take center stage. But what if someone thinks the interests of the country needs to go left and someone thinks it needs to go right? Where is the middle ground there?
Is it stalemate? Do we not then move on that particular matter? Because there are some very serious matters, policy positions that the country needs to move on or continue on. as it were?
As they go into this detail, I want to see if they will have a deadlock breaking mechanism, because there would be instances where they simply will not agree, but decisions will have to be taken. So what do they do there?
Sufficient consensus, as Malusi was just saying in studio there. What does this framework agreement actually mean? Is it actually worth the paper it's written on? You know, is it, because where does that leave them ultimately if someone decides to step outside of the bounds of the framework?
And also the risk as well, when perhaps the positions get too hardened, the risk of it falling apart. Oh, by the way, like we saw what happened in the GNU of 1994, but you would know that at the time the ANC had a sufficient majority, so it really didn't matter. So whoever decided to pull out. So what basically this tells you, Sakina, is that there is also that risk. And then in this instance, if, for example, a party like the DA feels so aggrieved that they pull out, so what of this GNU? I know I don't want to be a pessimist as a South African, but I'm using this based on the experience. When that GNU in 1994 was set up, we were not expecting that someone was going to walk out 2 years earlier, but it happened. So have they got mechanisms and the agreements to such a point that it will last for 5 years? It will be very interesting to see the detail afterwards.
It's going to be very interesting to see how long this will hold, given just how divergent some of the policy positions are, and of course how they are going to manage the deadlocks, if there are any. But of course we are coming to you live from the ICC in Cape Town, declared a parliamentary precinct.